Right, I just thought I would give you a wee update on the painting. I wanted to go through a few things first for the painting that I'm obviously very new to it and inexperienced, and I didn't expect a few things, I suppose. Some of it was the mess that it makes. I found that especially when you're doing the primer coats, between the coats, you get a lot of dust that settles in what I've made as a paint booth. And what was happening was the dust was gathering around the bottom, and then when I was going in to spray the next time, some of it was getting kicked up, and I was seeing little specks on the fork legs, thinking that it was the coverage, and it turned out that it was actually little bits of grey primer getting kicked up. So I then realised that I had to keep this clean at all times and just basically clean it out. Admit, this is an amateur setup, okay? It's not, I haven't got a paint booth, I haven't got, you know, extractions and all that stuff going on. It is just an attempt to paint some bits that are past their best. So I have, you know, since then kept hoovering up any debris, you know, that's been left over from the coats. I clamped it using these clamps that you get with your workbenches, just a workbench like this I've got below. So I clamped using these, and I made holes, as you can see up here. That's for the fork leg, and then I made other holes for when I paint calipers and things, so I can hang them down. It's just something I knocked up out of leftover wood after the workshop got built. So I thought I would show you the end result. Right, so I'm not going to hide anything. I'm not trying to, you know, I could do a picture from a distance, and I'm sure it looks quite impressive from a distance. It does look quite good. But I will show you the end result so you can see clearly that it's not perfect, and I need to do maybe a bit more work on the next leg and see if I can make that even better. Work in progress, you know, these are going back onto a 30 or 33-year-old bike. As I said in the earlier videos, this was all about preserving the bike, not restoring it. If I ever do this again, I'll probably get the paint legs done professionally and strip them all down and get them done properly. But this was like an interim solution. So what I did was I rubbed it all back, obviously, to sort of the same sort of state as this one here. Okay, I've got a little bit more work to do on this one to rub it down a bit more. One of the worst things is getting the tape back off after you've got it on. It really does stick. But that's where something like a nice glue remover helps you clean up the fork legs without having to scrape, and a little plastic scraper, and of course your nails. So what I did was I did various etching primer coats, and in the end I must have done maybe about 5 sets of 2 etching primer coats, and in between certain points I rubbed it back down. I had put some filler in certain bits of the leg that had been slightly damaged, and rubbed that back down as well. And then what I did was I got a thick primer. So I used the etching primer for the various coats, and then I bought hopefully I have it here, a high build, hopefully you can see that there. I bought a high build primer for sort of the last 2 coats, and the idea was to hope that that would just maybe fill in a bit of the imperfections. It's not perfect, and there's certain bits I could have made better, and I maybe could have filled in a bit better. And I'm going to try and show you the best I can. I'm not like I say, I'm not trying to hide anything. But this was the final finish. There is just some imperfections that really needed maybe filler, a little bit more filler. And I probably could have done this bit a little bit better as well. I had thought about using a Dremel, and I might do that on the next one. It's the lower part, you know, the spindle will go in there, there'll be grease around it. It's not really the end of the world. These bits here are all going to be covered by, you know, calipers and mud guards. So you're not going to see any of these bits. So I'm not too worried about them. I had to fill this and drill this back out because original mudguard bolts had seized like unbelievable. They were a real bugger to get out. So you can see the fork leg and the finish that I've got. And I'll show you what I used. This was the metallic spray paint that I used. And it's number M0100 from Halfords, metallic. Now what I found with the metallic was that you needed to go a bit closer with it, because if you stand too far back from it, all you get is the metal flaking. You don't actually get the paint going on, and it's a very odd finish you get when you do that. So I realised you've got to get a bit closer with the metallic paint to actually get it to go on properly. Now this is the back of the fork leg, so I'm not overly worried about that, because you're not going to see that anyway. It's really this side, I suppose, is the important bit. Now there is a few wee imperfections. I don't know if I can home in on that, but I've gone far enough with that, I think, that I'm happy just to leave it like that, and I'll probably make a much better job of the next one. It's all learning, isn't it? I had some leftover handles. I had these handles that I bought for these are to cover the windows, basically. And I had a couple left. I had 4 left over. So what I did was I put handles up here, and I got some para rope, this stuff here, and I bought these sheets in Argos. They weren't that expensive. I think they were £7 each or something like that. And what happened was when I finished painting the right. So what happened was when I first did it, and I didn't realise the mess that the paint would make. There was dust everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Every shelf, every toolbox I had, every accessory, everything that was packed away in the shelves was covered in a fine dust. So I spent a good part of a day getting everything out and cleaning it all, and I invested in a Henry Hoover because I realised that I needed a good sort of industrial hoover to be able to cope with getting rid of this dust. But I cleaned up the whole workshop, I pulled everything out the shelves, I got it all cleaned, and then I thought, right, I'm not doing that again. So then I invested in these sheets. Now these are just temporary. Once I finish with the painting, I'll take them down. They're not going to stay up, but I can drop them down here, I can drop them down at that end. I've got a cover over the bike now and everything, so the only area that's really going to get sort of dusty is going to be the main floor area, and obviously round about the booth. But it'll just cut down what I need to clean up at the end of it. Obviously you've got to invest in good paint masks that you're not going to damage your health in any way. So I'm going to leave that one as it is. I've read certain things online about people painting their fork legs. The process, as I said, that I did was rubbed it all down, obviously, made sure it was all clean, cleaned it with alcohol wipes and so forth. Then I went about with an etching primer. I probably did maybe 8 to 10 coats of etching primer. 15 minutes in between the first twin coats. Then I would leave it, and I would just leave it to the next day, and I'd do another set of twin coats. And I just built that up basically, and then rubbed it back a bit. Then I did the thick primer that I showed you, a couple of coats of that, and then the next thing was to do the metallic coat, which I did again over maybe, I don't know if I maybe did about 3 or 4 coats of that. And then I finished it off with a lacquer, and the lacquer, so I just used a Halfords clear lacquer, and I only did a couple of coats of that. I read things online about people doing this kind of work and, putting it back on their bike, or, getting their bike back on the road again, and then bits chipping off and so forth. I hope that I've done it the best way I could have done it with a rattle can, and that I've kind of, my workshop's heated, so it's not cold. It's sitting about 15-16 degrees today. It's been up at about 18, so it's not cold. It's had time to cure. I've done this over, I don't know, three weeks or something. I've done this one fork leg. I'm busy with other stuff, obviously. Forgive my attire, but I've been out running today. Right, so going on to the next fork leg, hopefully I can learn from what I've done on the first one. I don't see it needing to be, you know, for me to go and start stripping things down again or rubbing this down because I think I could get it better. It's good enough for what I'm trying to achieve. It's not perfection. And I really don't know what the end result will be. I might put all this back on the bike, and as other people have commented that, you know, maybe in a year's time it will start to peel off or chip or what, I don't know. It's an experiment for me, and, you know, I will let you know how that goes. Hopefully I can do all this over the winter and get it back on the road for springtime. As I say, it's preservation, it's not a restore. And that's it. I just really wanted to update on the things that I found with the painting. You need to sort of maybe enclose your area to stop the dust, the paint and the dust going everywhere. Invest in a good hoover because you're going to need it. I did have a situation where I wanted to start this bike because I hadn't been running for a wee bit, and I did it on the video. I showed you it running, and at the back end of that, I had it running in the workshop, and I was in the workshop, and I really should have. I wasn't thinking, you know, but I should have pushed it to the door on the trolley and let the fumes get out of the door and keep the door open. I did have the door open for most of it. But anyway, I did that, and then I did a bit of painting, and it was a couple of coats I put on the fork leg. And I've never ever had a problem with carbon dioxide or, you know, stupidly breathing it in. And, well, I say stupidly breathing it in, obviously this time I did. But when I had finished and I locked the workshop up, I just got really dizzy, and I had to sit down. I had to sit down and let it pass, and it took about a couple of hours for it to go away. So just as a warning, and I know it's, you know, it's common sense really, but just as a warning, even if you think, I'm only going to run it for 10 minutes, make sure you've either got an exhaust extractor or you push it to the door. And I've got double doors there. I could have had it sitting there running, you know, putting the carbon dioxide out into the air instead of my lungs. And I don't know whether, because I've run bikes before, but it's always been in the garage, or maybe had the big door open and so forth. But maybe that and painting as well. So it made me very aware of how dangerous it is to be in an enclosed environment and not maybe take any precautions. So I'm just saying that to anybody else. Make sure that you don't be as daft as I was, because the consequences can be quite serious. Anyway, I'm happy if anybody has looked at what I've done and anybody's got any advice, or anybody's going to tell me any gotchas, or, you know, I should have did this first or I should have done that. That's what it's all about. It's all about, you know, other people sharing their expertise and experience and passing it on. And then, you know, if anybody watches this, or, you know, not only will I learn from it, but hopefully other people can learn from it as well. In the end, you know, sometimes with motorbikes, you are sort of working towards a budget, and you maybe aren't in the place where you can just afford to go and get everything powder coated and professionally painted. And maybe when it's older bikes, you know, if you look back on the motorcycles of 100 years ago, if you look at a lot of those, how they get looked after, and a lot of that is because they were hand painted and so forth. But there's a lot of good frame paints and that now, that people can make quite a professional job of these bikes without them getting powder coated and so forth. But these bikes are all maintained and kept going just by the guy in the shed who's just doing enough to preserve them and keep them healthy. So it's not always about spending as much as you can to, you know, it's great if you've got the money and you can just go and do it and you don't have to think about it. But I'm sure there's a lot of us that aren't in that boat, and we are trying to just, you know, watch the pennies and maybe preserve something and keep things, you know, as well as we can with what budget we've got. And so we end up doing things like this that maybe we're definitely not qualified to do. And for me, I've never done a lot of painting. Anyway, thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care. Bye.